Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Data's in Control podcast. My name is Brian Chauvin, and I'm the founder of Data's in Control. Before we get started into today's conversation, I'd like to ask you guys a favor. If you haven't already done this, please hit the subscribe button, head on over to iTunes or the podcast app, or however you're listening to this, rate and review the podcast. It only takes a second, and it goes a long way for getting us exposure and helping us deliver our message to other people that would benefit from hearing it. So thanks in advance. Now, let's get into today's topic. Well, if you've listened to this podcast before, you've probably heard me talk about commitment and execution. Over the past number of episodes, I don't even know how many I've talked about this, but it seems like my message has been maybe a little watered down, maybe a little diluted. So I wanted to hit you guys in the face with something today. And this comes from experience. I've been in some dark places. I've been kind of in a groove. I've been in a rut. I've been stuck in my ways. I've been, all of these dark places that you can imagine. And one thing I know for sure is that uncertainty and shame are only a few steps away from depression and anxiety. Now, separately, depression and anxiety are killers for men. They're awful. But together, it's like the perfect storm of bullshit. And one thing that I've talked about is doing the work. And I've talked about becoming certain and sure of yourself. And I've talked about all of these things in other podcast episodes. But what happens is, guys, you listen to this podcast, you go and you buy a book, or you download an Audible, and you listen to a book, and you think that completes your journey. You think that reading a book or listening to a podcast once a day, you think that constitutes commitment. Well, I have to tell you guys that this is the farthest thing from the truth. We become addicted to learning. We become so wrapped up in gaining knowledge that we forget to execute on the work. We forget to execute, to gain knowledge about what it is inside of us that we're forgetting. Learning about our emotions, learning about all of these suppressed feelings that we've never been in touch with. We forget about executing on a budget, creating a financial plan. We forget about all of this. It goes out the window because we're so wrapped up in learning. We're so wrapped up in gathering this knowledge that the value of all of these books, whether it's Tony Robbins, Brene Brown, or any number of people, Sean Whalen, Andy Frisella, Grant Cardone, all of these people, all of their knowledge goes out the window because you don't ever fucking execute on it. Some of us even go the route of investing into courses. We invest thousands of dollars into different courses through different mentors, and we don't even practice what we learned. We don't put any in, we don't execute. And guys, this is the biggest, most disappointing and frustrating thing for me, because everyone wants to become better. Everyone wants and talks a great game about all of the things that they're reading and learning, but they're not fucking executing. How do I know? Because I've been there. I've been that guy. I've invested thousands of dollars in a program, and I didn't execute on it one bit. I came back and I was happy, and after every call and every group activity, I felt like I was better and better and better, and then the next day, I just forget about it. I would not execute on the ideals that I learned. I didn't learn about myself. I didn't take the time to plan and strategize and get to know me and what I want. And I'm telling you guys, this is our number one downfall, our number one mistake as men, because we think just having this knowledge is enough. We think that because we've participated in these groups that we think we're one step better than we were. And maybe that's the case, but the problem is just attending an event, just listening to a podcast, just reading a book doesn't make the changes. It doesn't get you running every day or exercising. It doesn't get you journaling. It doesn't get you financially planning. It doesn't get you talking with your wife and dating your kids and cultivating relationships. The fact of the matter is that is the work, guys. Putting in the effort. A handwritten note in a lunch pail goes a long way for a kid. Or a hug and an I love you or an I'm proud of you. Guys, or even exercising and practicing gratitude Tell your family one thing that you're grateful for before you eat dinner. Gratitude, guys. All of these things that we learn and we talk about, but nobody executes on. I said this in the last podcast that I've taken a lot of time over the past few weeks and I've talked to a lot of women, and a lot of women's concerns are relative to men, and all of these concerns and all of these judgments that they have inside of them related to their husbands is all about their self-certainty, their view of themselves, the way that they communicate, and all of this stems from one thing. Nobody is doing the work to learn about themselves. And I can't impress the importance of this enough. Guys, if there's one thing you get out of this podcast, if there's one thing that you listen to over the course of the day that I can express an immense amount of value for, it's get to know you. Period. You need to know you. You need to be able to fill up your energy cup before you can give that energy to other people. Or as other people say, you can't give energy when you have none. You just can't. If you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not learning about yourself spiritually, financially, if you don't have all of these goals, this uncertainty and this shame and this realm that you're living in is going to swallow you whole. And then it's going to cause you to get sick, and it's going to create all of these negative waves all throughout your life. It's going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect your marriage. It's going to affect your own personal health. Guys, we often listen to the voice in our head, and sometimes we can't determine which voice to listen to, whether this is actually a fear or it's just a lie. And sometimes it's hard. I can't buy that second property. I can't buy that rental property because I'm afraid of the interest rates, or I'm afraid of this. Well, is this an actual fear based on fact, or is this just you trying to sabotage yourself and keep you safe? There's a whole realm of different knowledge that you need to know about yourself. Because once you start doing this work, once you start learning about what's going on inside of you and inside of your head, you learn to take control of this, and you learn to hear which voice is actually the truth and which one's actually just a story that you've created to keep yourself straight and keep yourself safe. So I'm challenging you guys, if you've learned and get anything from this, execute on this today. Go out, get yourself a book, and we're going to call it a journal. You can call it whatever you want. Call it a writing pad, call it a war map, call it whatever. It doesn't matter what the fuck you call it. Go buy one. And I want you to start by writing some stuff down about yourself. Take these cues. Get a pen and paper and write this down right now. Number 1, I don't want. Start with this because a lot of people can't figure out what they do want. So start by writing out what you don't want. I don't want to be out of breath when I walk up the stairs. I don't want to get a divorce. I don't want to have a negative balance in my bank account. I don't want, etc., etc., etc. Write it down. Next, I'm a believer in what you believe dictates your behaviors. So I want you to find out what your beliefs are related to certain things. For example, number 1, what are your beliefs surrounding money and wealth? Family and relationships, fitness and nutrition, spirituality and the purpose of life. Next, I want you to consider the following things. If money wasn't an object, if you had an infinite amount of money in your bank, what would you spend your time doing? With whom would you spend your time? What would you do for work? Guys, some of these questions may seem redundant and some of them may seem a little bit childish or crazy, but these questions are designed to get you thinking about yourself, your wants, your needs, your desires. And there is a difference between wants, needs, and desires. So I want you to consider these things. I want you to write them down and be brutally honest with yourself. No sugarcoating anything. I mean, let's face it. Nobody else is going to read this, just you. Please do this work. Start thinking about yourself. Start gaining some intimate knowledge of yourself. Reacquaint yourself with who you are, where you're going, what you want, because you can't sell from an empty cup. You can't give from an empty cup, guys, but you need to know where you're at in order to know where you're going. You can't make a plan to have $10 million in your bank if you don't know where you're at currently. You don't know where you're starting. So let's find your starting point. Let's find out all of these things about you. Let's reconnect you with yourself. And that's it for today, guys. That's my message. If this is a conversation that you want to continue, if you want to learn more about this, join our free Facebook group. Head on over to dadisincontrol.com. Click the button to join our free Facebook group. It's that easy. Surround yourself with a group of men that are willing to answer questions, that are willing to give advice, that are willing and wanting to become a better version of themselves. Last but not least, guys, if you're a man and you're listening to this and you can't answer this question, what are you passionate about? Maybe you're sitting there, you're hollow inside, you're numb, you're not in touch with yourself, you're stuck in a rut, you're not happy with life, maybe you feel shame, maybe you're uncertain about where you're at, where you're going. I can help. I've been there. We are accepting applications for one-on-one coaching. The process is simple. Head on over to dadisincontrol.com/start. Fill out the application, send it off, and that'll prompt a free phone call with me, so that I can find out where you're at and we can determine exactly what it is that I can do to help level you up, where you need to go, what you want to be. It's that easy, guys. Why do this? Because you're worth it. Because your family's worth it. And what's going to happen if you don't invest in yourself, if you don't execute, if you don't do the work? What is going to happen? Where is your life taking you now? So that's it, guys. So until next time, have yourself a great day, and we'll see you on the inside of the group.